Previously on the Jay and Dan podcast.
Trojan. They cured AIDS. Nobody's wearing them anymore.
I don't think they did.
Oh, they didn't? I thought they cured AIDS in the little baby. And now we can all just bareback. You okay over there? You don't look so good. Tulsi's got that face like, I'm about to hit my pants.
No. To get back to my car, it's about to hit 400,000.
Oh. Oh my God. What was that? Wow.
I was Pope. I just switch it all up and just come out just guns a-blazing.
What do you mean? Like
a
shoot everyone?
No, but he comes out and they just do a slight smile.
Wouldn't it be great if we just opened fire and the...
No, but you'd be like, woohoo!
Yeah, I'm the Pope, baby!
You're listening to the Jay and Dan podcast.
Dance. Dance.
It's the Jay and Dan podcast brought to you by Playtex Gentle Glide Slender.
What?
It's our new sponsor. Oh, potential.
Gentle Glide Slender, so it's smaller, it slides into the easier, but still has the same absorption.
Okay, before you start swearing, people did not like the burp as the fill-in.
And just hearing that preamble from last week, it just sounded disgusting.
So I say we, since Tim's not a part of the show anymore, thank God, we use Tim Sigh.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. You're getting thumbs up from Mike Gentili, our producer.
Tim Sigh will be the fill-in for the swearing.
We should also mention that Katie is with us once again this week.
Oh,
great to have Katie here.
I mean, yeah, she's great.
Seems like there's maybe a little tension between you and Katie, and here's why.
Sexual tension.
Nah, there's zero sexual tension from her side. But I think the thing that really has allowed her to keep you in line is that she doesn't put up with your
I don't
Christoph
give anyone
stuff. Yeah, you're like, oh, let's go, let's do this. And she's like, hold your horses. I like that.
I got a car to sell.
So let's talk about this. First of all, your car did reach 400,000 K this week.
Yes.
You sent me the picture.
So I was driving home from work the other night. I got home with 25 kilometers to go. So I said, all right, great family moment. We'll pile them into the car. So I went and did some running around. So we only only had to do 20 kilometers in the car, which isn't a lot. So I get back from doing my run around as the car's running in the driveway. I said, everyone, come on. So I've got 2 daughters and a wife. And you could not have felt... Well, the little one who has no idea what's going on, she's 2. So she's like, car. So she's ready to go. But the other ones
sounds like a senile old man that you've raised there.
So the other ones are like, you have to go. I'm like, this is a big moment. And no one shared my enthusiasm. So I pulled over when it hit 400. I wanted someone to take a picture of me or something. Yeah. No one did.
No one was interested.
So I just took a picture of the odometer and they're like, can we go home now? I'm like...
That's like the most depressing episode of Vacation ever.
But I was smiling ear to ear. I was like so happy.
Now, meanwhile, you reach 400,000 K.
And I tweeted out the picture of my odometer. And here, right after I tweeted, here's all the tweets I got. Congrats. Now can we poop on it? Hashtag start the pooping. When can I poop on your car for charity?
Everyone wants to just stick their bums over your Lexus and just poop.
Big deuce here.
So I gave that some thought. I was like, so what if I said, yes, you could? So would people just, I'm like, okay, let's see you do it. No one would.
Yes, I would, happily. I might do it after this podcast.
How the car's going to, so when can people pay to poop on it? Yeah, time for a deuce. And then a lot of people were wondering why I'm not being paid by TSN because I'm driving a 98 car. As I always say, we live in a disposable society. The thing works fine. Why throw it out? But so intriguing development on my way here. All in about the span of 2 hours, I purchased a vehicle and I sold my car.
Did you purchase another 98 Lexus?
No, a Hyundai.
You got yourself a Hyundai?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
An accent? Just a little?
No.
One? No.
Some other car.
Oh,
It's an 09. So I don't buy new.
Yeah, you
So-
only buy years old.
My wife put it on Kijiji, and
The old car, the 400,000K. Yeah.
because the charity thing, again, I went into this last week. It's just, it'll involve a lot of work, and I don't
Hey,
think
that's not why we got in this business.
so. I put $1,000 or best offer on Kijiji. Offers flooding in. So first guy I call, he's like, "What would you take?" I'm like, "I don't know. Give me an offer." He's like, $500. I'm like, "Well, the wreckers will give me $400." And then I'm realizing I'm driving a car that's worth $500.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a shock to me. I expected you to come in and say, "Yeah, I sold it for a few thousand." When you were at sub 1,000, I thought, maybe you've driven this car just a little too long.
So I got $600. But here's the catch.
$600.
So we tape this at night. Like currently it's 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. So the guy purchased it. He's coming from Hamilton. We are in downtown Toronto. He's like, "Okay, I want to buy it tonight." I'm like, "I'm kind of tonight. What time you done?" I'm like, "I'm done at like 2:30 in the Okay, I'll come and get it." I'm like, so my wife is texting. She's terrified. She's like, "Can you do the deal in daylight?" So the guy's not buying it tonight, but he's giving me the cash tonight. So we got $600 in my pocket tonight. Want to party?
Oh, that'll be burning a hole in that pocket. Wait a minute. So he's going to give you the money but not take the car?
I don't know what's going on. I'm probably going to die.
So you could just leave. You could conceivably take his money and just disappear from the planet.
But it's not like I'm in like a dangerous situation. It's not like I've got an expensive car that he can steal. It's $600. I still can't believe I was driving a $600 car.
Did you have any idea that's what it was? But you listed it for 1,000.
I said 1,000 or best off.
So did you go
I'm
on?
not going to
Did you
nitpick
go on
over
the
$400.
the blue book or whatever and see
No.
what it was worth? Or
I called the wrecker and they said they'd give me $400.
so you just doubled that.
Well, they
added a
said,
bit
"Oh,
more.
you're driving it here." Okay, so it's about $400 then. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Depressing start to this podcast.
Well, that's what happens when you talk about your car.
So that happened.
Now,
this
could people poop in your new car?
No,
The Hyundai?
No, I don't want to. Oh, and then someone else asked if they could poop in the front seat. And they said, "I'm so jealous of your dog right now." Because we told the dog pooping on the front seat.
People just like the idea of pooping on your possessions. There's the double-sided relief factor plus just genuine joy of soiling your possessions.
I guess so.
Big deuce here.
Oh man.
That's my favorite.
Boy, I was listening to I've been watching the Women's World Curling Championship from Latvia. Man, the Russian team, what a bunch of
You
stunners.
showed me a picture.
Man.
This is a bikini. I didn't think anyone owned a bikini in Russia.
Unbelievable how beautiful. And that was the lead for the Russian team. And then I think the skip is like equally stunning. Anyway, I watched for about 2 minutes.
Big revelation. We were giving an interview before this podcast, and something was revealed in this interview.
Oh. Okay, wait, you have to explain the interview.
Well, Carly, who was on last week,
right.
They
one of our interns, now one of our writers.
They interviewed us for their final year-end piece or something, and I hope they failed because their microphone didn't work last week.
They weren't able to record any of it. So right off the top, I was like, man, feel like that's in broadcasting 101. Hitting record is that's probably your first day. So I'm a little concerned about both of them.
Did you must have had to use a Marantz, did you?
No. We used an abacus.
You can't record on an abacus. A Marantz was it was like a tape machine in which you carried over your shoulder at a strap, and then you had a long cord with a microphone.
No, we just used like a little, like the recorder that all reporters use now in scrums and stuff like that.
I didn't have that.
What? Where did you go? Algonquin?
Yes, quality school. It's Moscow, not Moscow. That's all I learned.
So anyway,
one of my instructors was from the CBC, and he's like, I was on the CBC for 2 months in North Bay.
You talk like a old English actor.
I'm like, really? So you're my teacher?
Yeah. Well, I had a producer from the CTV show Live It Up was one of my instructors at Ryerson, and he used to be like, we traveled the world and shot great stories, drank wine, and now I'm here. Like there was just nothing but depression. But I liked what Bobby Mack said last week. Bob McKenzie on the show last week. He said, I don't like to say to kids now who ask me about the business, I don't like to say, well, it was so much better back then. Like, who wants to hear that? I loved that. Was really refreshing. And I was a bit of a reminder for me. Don't be a downer about the biz. The biz is what it is.
Bobby,
the biz is what it is.
A lot of people said it was the most professional we've ever been on the podcast.
So I was saying to Jeremy Taggart, who will be joining us for another Old Man Story this week, I was saying to him that yesterday you were doing updates on the NHL on TSN broadcast, and I showed up in the studio, and all of a sudden Ben Ziegelstein, our studio director, he always wants to get me on camera, so he starts turning the cameras toward me, so I picked up a fire extinguisher, and I was like starting to do a bit with the fire extinguisher, like, is there a fire here? I thought it was funny, but all these people were tweeting me like, I don't think Bob really enjoyed that. But I think the problem is I took time away from Bob's segment.
Oh.
Yeah, so there, let that be
And
a
Tim wasn't
lesson.
happy. He's like, oh, you aren't on TV enough?
Yeah, Tim was not happy. Oh, and here's the other thing with producer Tim. So we're talking to him yesterday, and he goes, oh, I have the day off tomorrow. I have an office day. What the f*** is that?
Yeah. First off, you don't have an office.
Yeah, he has no office. He needs to do no planning. He has no friends. He has no life.
Can we get one of these? Can we get it? I'm serious. I want one.
Yeah. Producer Tim's our friend, by the way. I was a little harsh there.
You are. So, again, getting back to this interview in which we did before this podcast, it was revealed in this interview that your mom is on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she is. My mom. But this is the problem with social media. And I'm sure people who are on Facebook have experienced this problem. Like they did that sketch on SNL where Andy Samberg's mom was on Facebook and like spying on everything you do. And now I'm on Twitter and I'm sending out what I think are funny tweets, and my mom will call me like, why did you send that out? Your father and I are both following you. It's like, stop following me.
What are you tweeting that's offending them?
I'm not really sure. Like
Pictures of your junk.
Yeah, I put pictures of my on Twitter, and she's like, why did you do that? I'm like, shut up, Mom. That's what we do. That's what we youth do. Put pictures of our junk on the Twitter
I don't
machine.
think you're considered youth.
You don't know?
No.
Youthful?
We're old.
Yeah, getting up there. Almost 40.
Yeah.
What are we going to do for our 40th birthday bashes?
I'm going to Ireland.
Yeah, have you already decided that? You're going back to the Emerald Isle?
I've never been, so I'd just be going for the first time.
Oh. So you're just going to go there, look around, and come back?
Was there any O'Toole's around? They're in County Cork, I believe.
I think you'll enjoy it. It's fantastic.
I can't wait. Hopefully I'll be around by then because it's still down in these energy drinks like they're going out of style. I'm probably going to be dead soon.
No, that won't happen. One of the reasons I went into the... no, I'm just in denial about it.
No, that won't happen.
Like
each
pictures
night
of
on
my
the
junk.
desk, when we're consuming these energy drinks, you continue to tell me your heart hurts. Not because you're sad. It's just your heart is like not ticking right.
Well, what happens is like... if we have the smaller cans, like the Red Bull size cans, I feel like that's a good amount. But the cans we really like are these NOS cans that are, how many milliliters are in the, like 600 or something? So it's a lot of, so by the time I get to the end of the can, like I can just feel the heart just struggling to beat a little bit. Just struggling to get that blood through my veins.
I keep hearing this horrible irregular thumping noise.
It's your heart, and I think it's on its last thump.
Woo! I was afraid it was my transmission.
So, is that an issue? Maybe. Am I going to worry about it at this point? No, not until I have a full-fledged heart attack. Then I'll worry about it. But the reason I came into the studio, the NHL and TSN studio, was to do a preemptive apology to Aaron Ward.
Oh yeah, you're upset that he was going to murder you.
I was worried that he was going to be upset about this intro that I did on SportsCenter on Tuesday night. And that leads to the top 10 stare downs, but there will be no stare downs for our hockey analyst, Aaron Ward. That's because it appears, as one of our viewers has pointed out, that Wardo doesn't have all of his eyebrows. In fact, now that you mention it, it does seem that half of Wardo's eyebrows have mysteriously disappeared, and now I can reveal the reason why. I'm sad to report that the missing halves of Wardo's eyebrows have joined together to form one new eyebrow. And that eyebrow was mistaken for a caterpillar and eaten by a bird.
Weird.
We'll miss you, Browsy!
I thought you were going to, at that point when you said they joined together, I thought you were going to go to a picture of someone with a unibrow.
No, I was. There was a lot of concern because we did a zoom in of Wardo's half brows, and Tim was already worried. Isn't it enough that you just show his face? You can see his half brows. You don't need to emphasize it. Tim would really like us to stop using quote boards and video in the show.
We'd
in our
probably
intros.
mention him on this podcast.
That's true. You probably would like that. But Wardo,
Wardo was fine with it?
he was okay with it.
He didn't put a potato in your tailpipe?
That sounds dirty. Sounds sick, actually.
That's how you blow someone's car up, isn't it?
I guess. Don't you put a banana in the tailpipe like Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop?
I don't remember.
Do you remember that?
No.
No? Okay.
Not really a guy you come to for movie knowledge.
Yeah. Car knowledge, though. You're right up there.
Yeah.
If you need something sub $1,000, go to Toolsy's Kijiji site. Why don't you just start selling cars? You'd be great at that. You'd be like a legend.
But my first car deal could end with me being dead.
Well, and you've had a good run. We have a great guest coming on the show today.
Who?
Brian Williams.
No.
CTV, TSN, Olympic host, CFL on TSN host, a legend in the industry. We're going to ask about this. He was there when Paul Henderson scored the winning goal in the Summit Series in '72.
I have a couple of personal interactions with Brian Williams. At the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, my niece and nephew came for a tour of the broadcast facility because they live in Vancouver, it's now the convention center in Vancouver. It's state of the art. It is breathtaking, this place. So we're touring around. They're like, yeah, whatever. And finally, we get to the CTV studio, and there's Brian Williams. So I'm like, oh, God, this guy doesn't have a clue who I am. I don't know if we've ever officially met. So I'm like, hey, Brian, do you mind if I give these guys a tour? He's like, Dad, come on in. I'm like, oh, yes.
You looked like a star in front of your family.
Yeah, so he's like, come on up here. You guys sit down. So they got a picture with Brian Williams. They just loved it. And now, Brian, he's become a friend of ours, and he now gives me the handshake, and then he comes in for the hug now.
Handshake hug.
But I don't want to initiate the hug because in case he's like kind of in a hurry or something, I'm just left awkwardly
Right.
hugging him, and he wants no part of it. So
Yeah.
he has to initiate it. So he always probably thinks I'm awkward now when he sees me.
You would be right about that.
So
If I tried to hug him, his face would be right in my... So that's why I don't do that. Be like forcing him down in my crotch area. And he'd be like, why are you doing this to me? I'm like, I'm going for a hug.
So he's going to be here.
Yes, he is. Yeah, we're excited to have him on. He tells the same story to me every time he sees me, that Ralph Mellenby, the former legendary producer of Hockey Night in Canada, told him once to not try to be anyone but himself, because Dave Hodge, he'd known Dave Hodge, and he said, don't try to be Dave Hodge, be Brian Williams. And he says, when I see you, I see that same individual personality.
So he sees him and you?
Maybe a little bit.
Is he your dad?
Brian Williams is my father.
That's quite a revelation.
How great would that be?
Very cool.
Oh, my gosh. Mike Gentili has handed me an incredible piece of information here.
Now, what's going on here? I saw you guys giggling and guffawing.
Mike, you can hear Mike laughing about this. So Mike went on Auto Trader's website, and he found some comparables to your car.
Did I undersell?
I think you may have, just a scotch.
Shoot.
Mike says, these are comparables on Auto Trader.
With the same kilometers?
In the ballpark. So 98, yours is a Lexus ES, right?
Yeah.
So 98 Lexus
I don't want to hear this.
ES.
That's why this guy wants to give me the money.
Okay, so 240K, so a bit less than yours.
Oh, way less. That's not even in the same ballpark.
2050. a 98 Lexus LS, $309K,
That the LS is way better. The LS is like the high end.
$5,200.
Oh yeah, that's the LS. There's no comparison between my car and the LS.
Okay. Another ES, $204K, $5,000.
Yeah, that's only I've got 200,000 more. This not same ballpark.
I don't know,
No.
Tulsi. I think you could
Mine's-
at least gotten 2 out of it.
No, mine's 400,000 kilometers.
Yeah, but it's driven by a low-level Canadian celebrity.
But I tried to sell it when it was like 300 something for 2,000. There was no bites.
Really? I
Yeah.
feel like that. Did you put it on Auto Trader?
Oh yeah, there was no bites.
Really?
I wanted a quick sell. I wanted out of my life.
Well, I don't know, Tulsi. I feel like you could.
Should I sell it to him and just drop a big loaf on the front seat?
Yeah, just do that. He's probably expecting that. That's why he was so quick. He's like, "This is awesome. We're going to get some of his feces."
So we all learned something here. You price it for a quick sell.
I guess. If you want. But you could have probably gotten a little more out of that car.
I don't care.
Yeah, you don't give a damn. You're just happy to be rid of it.
No, it was a good car. Loved it.
Yeah, you did have it for a long time.
I hope my family at least will like take a picture with me saying goodbye to it or something.
Nope. They didn't care when it hit 400,000 K.
I'll be outside like waving bye to them. Like, what's Dad doing? He had that car for 10 years. Maybe share the moment with me. Oh, do we have to?
Any chance we could get Grant on the phone? Oh, okay. So Mike's going to do this. So today, Wednesday, when we're taping the podcast, is Bobby Orr's 65th birthday. That's pretty neat. I mean, for a lot of Canadians, I think that's going to really resonate.
I thought he was older. That's great.
he looks like
look-
$1 million
he
for
looks
that.
Great.
Yeah, he really does look good. Well, he's working. He's an agent. He's doing Chevy commercials.
That's right. He's trying to give every kid in Canada a hockey helmet, which is
helmet.
awesome.
Yeah. Did you just burp again?
Nope. There was no burping. My burps are fully contained.
Do you have that burp from last week, Katie? No, it doesn't have it. Oh, we have Grant.
I thought Grant was actually going, because Grant and I live in the same subdivision.
Right. You
I
guys are
thought-
neighbors.
I emailed him. I actually, while this show was going on, I sent him a text message. I sent it to his house. So
Oh, it's going to be one of those things where you
Yeah.
check your voicemail. Hello.
what time do you work till? Because I thought I was selling this car to the guy tonight, so I thought Grant would have to drive me home from work.
Am I still doing that?
No, you aren't, because the shady deal's taking place somewhere else.
Oh, good.
We're going to try to do it during daylight.
My wife said thank you, by the way.
Did I wake her up?
No. She just wondered why there's a robotic going, are you in tonight?
That was very good.
That was good.
So Grant is one of our audio experts at TSN. We call him Nabesy because he and I are neighbors, essentially. We run into each other the odd time.
Grant, can you tell, there's a former CTV News employee whose name we won't mention. What did she used to call you?
Oh, hey, audio.
She didn't bother learning your name.
Well, it's not too different from what you guys called me until you learned my name, really.
Whoa.
I don't know if that's necessarily
By the
true.
way-
I always knew your name.
That'd be a great name for a band. Hey, Audio.
Yeah, yes, it would.
Okay, what's your story about? I have no idea. I've never heard this story before. Well, you're going to tell us.
So it involves last week's guest, Bob McKenzie, and Bobby Orr, right, Grant?
That's right. And I thought it'd be a good story to tell because it's Bobby Orr's birthday.
Yep.
And so the backstory to it is my dad, back in the early 60s, played with Bobby Orr for the Oshawa Generals. He was his defense partner. My dad was more of the goon.
Kind of like you in the newsroom.
Yeah. You know, he's a mild-mannered chartered accountant, but back then he was more of a goon. Now, I started at TSN in 2003, and I had seen Bob around. He got to know my name, which is, he's good like that. He knew my name pretty early, but he didn't really know me, right? So we're doing, at the time, so this is like 5.5 years ago or something, so we're doing That's Hockey with Gino Retta. Bob McKenzie was on the set as well, and they were doing a segment called One-Timers, which is kind of like quick answers to rapid-fire questions. So at the time, this is just after, like a day after Al McInnes and Scott Stevens got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And they used to play in junior together. So Gino asked Bob if that was the best junior hockey duo they've ever seen, if he's ever seen in the Memorial Cup. And Bob had no idea, not knowing who I am, and I'm doing the show at the time. He had no idea what was about to happen. And he said, well, they're pretty good, but I'll take Bobby Orr and whatever stiff he was playing with on the Oshawa Generals. So, I mean, his point was Orr was so good by himself, it didn't matter who he's playing with, and he didn't know who Bobby Orr's partner was. So that was the end of the show. And the producer, Jeff Mott, who produced that at the time, but now produces NHL on TSN, he told Gino and Bob to say, can you guys, you want to just sit tight there for a minute? Grant is just going to talk to you for a second. And Bob has had this happen before where there's been commotion and he thinks an F-bomb went off over the air or something like that. So I opened the intercom to his earpiece and I said, that stiff you talked about was my dad, eh? And the look on his face, he looked right in the camera. We're off air now, but he looked right in the camera. He goes, really? And right away he goes onto the computer. I still have his mic up and he goes, oh. Is his last name Roberts? Oh, yep, last name Roberts. Oh, well. And which is funny because not really people knew about it. Only a couple of guys on the crew like Kenny and Fish. And Kenny looked over at me. He goes, that's your dad he's talking about. So he actually he blogged about it. He called Bobby Orr the next day about it, and they both laughed. And my dad emailed him back too. He goes, that was a good story, signed the stiff. So he was really all good about it. So Bob made a good point that you go on the air, make some obscure throwaway reference to like a nameless, faceless guy in junior hockey from the 60s, and it turns out to be the audio guy's dad.
I love it.
It's magical is what it is. I love
it. So that's been a good story. When he blogged it, people at my dad's office printed it off and put it up all over his wall and stuff like that.
I love it. I love it. And now when Bob sees you, is it like uncomfortable?
No, he goes, how's the stiff? So as the final kind of 6 degree of separation, my oldest son actually shares a birthday with Bobby Orr. He turned 15 today.
Oh, very nice. Oh, that's nice. Are you going to celebrate?
That way. We said, do you want a Bobby Orr baby? She goes, yeah, probably that'd be a good idea.
Yeah. And then you just went to town.
I could have sold your son his first car, but I just sold it to some guy who called me out of the blue, and I just sold it for cash.
Yeah. I told my son, I said, listen, we're not mortgaging the house just so we can pay for your car insurance.
Yeah, exactly. Forget about a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grant.
Hey, Nabesy, take care about when are you and Toolsy getting together at Buffalo Wild Wings?
I don't know. We only see each other every 7 weeks or so, right? Unless I see him in the grocery store or the liquor store.
I don't go to the liquor store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Right. Well, it's been an honor to be on with you guys. Thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure, Grant. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
Thanks, Nabesy.
Bye, Nabesy.
He's a good dude.
You ran into him once when you actually came to visit me. You ran into the grocery store or the gas station.
So weird because literally the first time I came to visit you, I had to stop at the gas station by your house, and I go in, and there's Grant. And he's just hanging out, and I was like, hey.
You had to buy a chocolate bar, didn't he?
I think he was buying a chocolate bar. Yeah.
I always go to the gas station to get Crunchy bar. What? Crunchy's a good chocolate bar.
It is. I like Crunchies.
The only thing, a lot of stores keep it on the bottom shelf, so it's always full of dust and dirt.
Yeah,
not in
true. I don't know if it's as popular as it was when we were
Here's this
youngsters.
guy calling again.
Who, the guy who's buying your car?
The guy buying the car.
Put him on.
Here, hang on.
Put him on.
Right.
Let's talk to him.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, it's Sean here. Sorry to bother you again. I'm going to be there in the next 5 minutes or so.
Okay, I'm just wrapping things up here. I might be about 10:15. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine. The only thing I just wanted to tell you, if you don't mind, can you just photocopy the ownership while you're in there?
I don't know where a photocopier is.
Sean, are you 12 years old?
Can you see if they have one there just so you can photocopy it?
Okay, I'll try find that. So I'll call you as soon as we're done here.
Okay, perfect. I'll just wait outside then, outside the building, or where should I wait?
Yeah, just find a spot on the street, I guess.
Okay, on Queen, right?
Yep.
Yeah, just beg for $600.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, see you outside.
Goodbye.
Sean is like 8.
I don't know.
He's not old enough to drive.
That's the guy's behind my. He's never asked my name.
Wow. Sounds like a nice kid.
Can you come with me? Can you accompany me? And do we have a photocopier here?
Yeah, Katie says yes. Oh, now you're friends with Katie, now that she has your photocopier that you're going to need to sell your car.
He can't
That's kind of cool.
We can't sue us for libel or anything, can he?
Yeah,
Because we had
probably.
him on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, for
he
sure.
didn't say anything. Okay.
No.
Before we get to Brian Williams, let's do vintage commercial campaigns. I see that it's not the one I sent in as a suggestion.
Yeah, it's the one I sent in. It's not always about you, Toolsy.
It's never about me.
What are you talking about? This whole podcast has been about your goddamn car sale.
Yeah. Oh, we had a correction from last week that I had to make.
Okay, here we go. This will be an hour. Settle in, folks.
Old man Toolsy. I forget. I'm too old for this. Okay, so we're doing this vintage commercial. We'll save mine for next week.
Okay, before we... Oh, let's play the commercial first, Katie. Here it is.
Introducing a new star, Pro Stars. My mother taught me that a good, nutritious breakfast is important. That's why new Pro Star cereal is part of my breakfast now. First, an ounce of Pro Stars with 4 ounces of milk is a good source of protein. Second, Pro Stars have a great toasted oat taste, lightly sweetened without added sugar. See? No sugar added. That's good. And Mom likes my picture, too.
New Pro Stars, a touch of sweetness without added sugar.
Yeah, that's because it was aspartame slowly killing us.
Wait, an ounce of cereal is not a lot of cereal, is it?
Yeah, well, it's like, like it's a bowl full.
Ugh. Okay. Did you ever try it? I never tried it.
Oh, well, Mike, you got to get on the mic here. Mike Gentili and I were reminiscing about it. That was the cereal for us as kids. Like, it was so popular. It was delicious. But
if anything was popular, I never had it.
But there was a catch to it. When it started out, like a lot of things, started out great. It was like kind of white and like the great one said, it had a light toasted out taste with a light bit of sweetness. But then, Mike, what happened?
They tinkered with a great product.
Ooh.
The original Pro Stars kept the milk white in the bowl. And a couple years later, they started to become glossy. You know how a picture goes from matte or glossy?
Yep.
The Pro Stars became glossy, and it made like the milk yellow.
So here's the...
And they ruined the perfect recipe.
The closest thing I can equate it to, Dan, is that it was like Alphabets. Like Alphabets used to be like that too. Kind of, the milk would be white. Now you have a bowl of Alphabets. You don't know what you're getting in there. That's
I think
crazy.
they've changed all the cereals. Fruit Loops don't taste the same.
They put, some sort of weird coating on it, like food
Captain
additives.
Crunch doesn't taste the same. Maybe it's just because we're old.
It's Captain Crunch to you.
Whatever. He's a pirate.
How about the Wayner's delivery in that commercial? Just a natural-born actor.
We have to pull up his SNL appearance, though. Waikiki hockey.
We were talking about it earlier. Like, if you get a chance, look up the Wayne Gretzky SNL appearance, because
what
it
was
was
his song? It
unbelievable.
wasn't Waikiki hockey.
Yeah,
was it?
Kiki hockey,
Yeah.
Waikiki hockey. Yeah, that was hilarious.
Okay.
Okay, Brian Williams.
Yeah, let's bring in our guest du jour, the one, the only, Brian Williams.
We are thrilled to be joined by Brian Williams. What can you say about this man? First of all, a mentor to Dan and myself. It's surprising in a lot of ways that we haven't turned out to be better broadcasters, considering Brian has been so nice to us. And Brian, first of all, when did you come to TSN? You came just before the Vancouver Olympics, is that right?
I came in June of 2006. I've
Yeah.
been at CBC for 32 years, CFRB a year before that, and ironically enough, we're in Chum FM studios. I was at Chum with Roger Ashby back in 1970.
And you were telling us just before we came on air that you started with Dave Hodge back then.
Dave Hodge and I worked at CFRB. We worked for Bill Stevenson. Dave at the time was doing hockey on a freelance basis for Channel 7 Buffalo, the Buffalo Sabres. That's before he went to Hockey Night in Canada. In fact, I was married on August 24th of 1974, probably before you guys were born. And Hodge was in my wedding, and I was in his wedding 2 or 3 weeks later.
How has
Pretty
Dave
neat.
changed over the years, if at all?
His hair has not moved. I mean, I've lost mine, and his is the same as it was back in the early 1970s. I'll tell you something about Dave Hodge. Dave Hodge may be the most knowledgeable broadcaster I've ever worked with. A lot of broadcasters think they can write. Dave Hodge is one of the few in our business that could write a newspaper column. And any good writer, whether it be Stephen Brunt, Dave Perkins, any of these guys will tell you, Steve Simmons, how, in fact, Simmons and the fellows that are on with him, Bruce Arthur from the Post,
Right, on the
Cahal
reporters.
Kelly, Dave Naylor, they will tell you often when they have to write their final segment, they look at each other and say, wow, Hodges was written better than ours.
Meanwhile, James Duthie's putting out 5 books a week.
Yeah.
Just dribble.
Yeah, just crap.
Oh,
just
no.
long
They're
hands.
good. They're good.
Now, James came on as a guest host while Jay was away in Australia, and he never once listened to the podcast. But Brian, you've actually listened to this podcast.
I was driving with Paul Harrington, one of the real good people at TSN. I remember when I started, Rick Bray said we need a producer to mentor young producers, and I said there's only one that knows journalism, and that's Paul Harrington. Paul and myself are driving from Shiloh, Manitoba, which is about 10 miles east of Brandon, heading back east to Winnipeg in November after doing a story on the Grey Cup. The original Grey Cup is at Canadian Forces Base Shiloh. And we listened to the podcast, and the guest was Romanuk, Paul Romanuk from London.
Yeah.
I remember we listened the whole way from Brandon or Shiloh into Winnipeg. It was very entertaining.
That's very good.
Romy was a great guest. What a great guy, too.
Yeah, Romy's a good guy.
Let's get into the Olympics. Jay and I, our Olympic coverage is not quite as extensive.
No.
We've done London.
Yeah.
We've done Vancouver. How many are you at now, Brian?
I've done 14.
14!
So what was the first one? What was the first
Montreal.
one? That was, Montreal was number one.
I did weightlifting at the San Michel Arena, and I remember Vasily Alexiev. He's now passed away, the big super heavyweight from the Soviet Union. You know, I joined CBC in '74 from Chum and then RB, so I'm new. It's my first Olympics. I go out to do my homework and my preparation. I go to a remote little airport north of Montreal, where the Russians, or then the Soviets, the evil empire still existed, the Berlin Wall. And there they are training. I saw what he ate for breakfast. He had a dozen eggs and 2 steaks. That's what I always remember about Montreal. And weightlifting had ended, and I was in the stadium on a rainy Saturday afternoon when Greg Joy won the silver medal. The Polish jumper, I forget his name, was first, and Dwight Stones, the favorite American, finished third. It's an event I will never forget.
You were also there in '72 when Paul Henderson scored for Canada. Now, were you covering that for the CBC at the time?
For Chum.
For Chum, you were covering
And
that.
I used to do reports, did the John Gilbert Show, which was a big talk show from 9 to 11 in the morning. I will, people don't realize, Jay and Dan, that he scored the winning goal in 3 of the 4 games. I mean, the loss was in Montreal, then they played Toronto, then they played Winnipeg, then they played in Vancouver. Phil Esposito had the meltdown. We all go over it. I mean, this was a different time. I can remember Foster Hewitt was next to me, the late, great Jim Hunt, who talked like this.
Oh, he was great.
And one of my
Shaky.
heroes, a personality. I mean, you guys.
Oh, he was great.
The reason you guys are so good, and the reason I'm not a mentor, I'm a fan, and so is Hodge, is that you're doing your own thing. You're original. I hate copycats. People, young people come to me and they say, "How did you give the time?" or "How do you move your hands?" And I said, "I don't know. I didn't realize I was doing it. It's just what you do." But you were asking.
Going to
Russia,
72? Yeah.
So I fly over. Jim Hunt and Carolyn, his wife, Foster was there. We land in Copenhagen, and some drunk from Sudbury get out on the tarmac on one of those little push cycles. I always remember that. I remember Tom Charrington, the great voice from CHML in Hamilton, sitting at the airport saying, if we crash in this God-forsaken country, they don't even put orange juice in vodka, I will be angry as hell. And I said, if we crash, Charrington, you won't know the difference. But when we were Deer Fives, there were Wolf Sixes, Ralph Mellenby, the legendary Hockey Night in Canada producer, Ted Huff from Hockey Night was in my group. I roomed with Dick Beddoes.
Wow.
The late columnist with the Globe and Mail. We stayed at the Ukraina, I believe, all we did was drink champagne and eat ice cream because the ice cream was the only good thing to eat, and the champagne was great. It was sunny when we arrived, and then it snowed. I think I got pneumonia about the third. I mean, it was a big babushka lady, about 300 pounds. And she came and rubbed something on my chest and nearly broke it. But they had these big women beside every elevator on every floor. But it was a great experience.
Wow.
What kind of hotel were you staying in?
One of the five sisters from the early days, the Ukraina. But Brezhnev was in the audience, the then head of the Soviet Union. I can remember the Da Canada and Yet Soviet. I remember after the last the winning goal, Henderson goal in the 8th game, we were trying to get to an interview, and the Soviet police said "Niet," and Jim Hunt said, "What do you mean niet?" And Hunt went crashing through and knocked one of them down, and I went stumbling. I had visions of spending the rest of my life in Siberia. But I will say this: the Canadians, many of them, were a bit on the rude side, and the Soviets were nothing but fine hosts. They treated us with respect. This was great hockey. Valery Harlamov's one of the greatest players I've ever seen. Big Yakashev. It was a highlight for me.
And at the time, could you sense that it was as big for Russians as it was for Canadians, the actual series itself?
Yes. Russia being Soviet Union, then Russia now. One of the few places in the world where hockey is as big. I mean, soccer's big there, yes, but hockey is in their blood. And you guys weren't around, but when I was your age and growing up, all we did was complain that the Russians sent their best players. They were in essence, professionals. They got houses, they got cars. All we could do was send our university players. Wait till the NHL comes. We're going to kill them. This is going to be the greatest thing in the world. I mean, the country stopped. You think the Olympics are big now? There's never been anything like 1972. Paul Henderson is battling leukemia. I saw Paul recently. He's a dear friend of mine, a class act, and it is an absolute disgrace. The idiots that are forbidding or stopping him from going in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Don Cherry makes the point. Trechek's in there for crying out loud, and Henderson is not.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, the Pat Burns thing just absolutely blew my mind that it took them.
Brian, if you've listened to the podcast, you know I'm easily sidetracked. I can't get the mental image of a 300-pound woman rubbing your chest out of my brain right now.
Well, you see, when the weather changed, I didn't have boots. We had loafers or whatever, running shoes, sneakers. Half of us got sick. And on every floor, when you got off the elevator, there was a big woman dressed in white with a bandana around her head. And I was, and she said, "Yeah," and she dragged me in and it cured me just like that.
Wow.
I think I was scared to death to see her again, so I got better very quickly. But the funniest thing, Mark Mulvoy, who was the editor of Sports Illustrated, and myself and Jim Hunt were walking. They don't have street lights. They have underpasses, like traffic circles, and you walk underneath. So we're walking along, and all of a sudden, Hunt's going crazy. He's going, "Monopoly!" This is this big guy, about 6'3". He's a kid with a Monopoly set. And Mark Mulvoy from Sports Illustrated thinks he's got a scoop. And Jim's going, "Monopoly!" And the kid says with a New York accent, "Yeah, Monopoly, ass. The U.S. Embassy's right above you, and I'm from New York City."
When you did your first Olympics, was that a dream for you, or was it kind of like, for Dan and I, we always talk, it wasn't necessarily something we always wanted to do, but once we did our first one, it was like, oh my God, we've got the fever now. We want to keep doing every one until we're done our careers. Is that how it was for you?
Yeah, I didn't do it as a host. I did it as a commentator on weightlifting, but it was the enormity of it. I mean, you guys love live television. This is why SportsCenter's so good. You're spontaneous. For spontaneity and live television, there is nothing. And you know this from what you did in London, how good it was. There's nothing like the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I couldn't wrap my head around, because, when you're covering it, you're kind of in a bubble.
Right.
And so when we were covering it in Vancouver and in London, you're sitting there on a set in a city far away from your family, far away from your friends, and you're wondering, is anyone watching this? Is anyone watching the Olympics? And what I always tell everyone, after you see and hear of all the reaction from across the country, the Olympics are such a massive event. And that's what I always take from it. I'm like, I could not believe the outpouring of support that the athletes were getting from all over the country. So it wasn't just in Vancouver, it was everywhere. And that's what I always take from it. You don't realize it at the time, but it is such a massive spectacle.
People don't go to a sports bar to watch luge or skeleton, but they will go to a sports bar to watch skeleton and John Montgomery during the Olympics.
Sure.
The Olympics transcend sport. The jocks will watch, but it's male, female, old, young. I hosted my first in Los Angeles in 1984. I couldn't believe the reaction when I came home, but when I came home from Seoul, after having to announce to the world about Ben Johnson, I mean, I was absolutely stunned. I was receiving mail. I always remember a letter from a lady in Sudbury who said, I'm not a sports fan, but I watched you 6 hours a day. You were a guest in my living room. And I'm a history major, so practice and preparation is big for me, and you have to learn the history. I didn't realize Greece didn't become a country till something like, I think, 1840 or 1846. It's a civilization older than most in many of our great democracy, medicine, but it was a group of city-states. So for me, the Olympics is just not about sport. It's about the host city, the host country, the history.
Before we were on, you were telling us, Dan was just mentioning how excited he is to purchase his new Hyundai. And you were talking about Seoul in '88. You were saying that there's all these products you saw there, and they weren't available here.
I hadn't heard of Samsung, and we all talked about Hyundai. We said, boy, if these things ever come to Canada, I'd like to get a dealership. And I can remember going to Nagano, Japan. This isn't long ago, 1998.
Yeah.
And seeing flat screens for the first time. This is where Sony unveiled them. So we're walking down the broadcast center, and we're saying, look at these. They're like pictures. Now they're everywhere. I mean, they're omnipresent, but the Olympics is often the birthplace of new technology.
So, sorry, Dan.
Of your 14, is it possible to handpick one and say that was the best run or that had the greatest moments collectively? Is there one that stands above all the others in your mind?
Ben will always stand out. It's not the happiest, but the Ben Johnson moment. I look at Los Angeles, the opening ceremony with 100 white grand pianos and Lionel Richie. I mean, I can go on, but I think, right there is Vancouver and Alex Bilodeau. We're the only country to have hosted two Olympics, Calgary and Montreal, never won a gold medal. We thought, I thought it might be Jennifer Heil. She skied on the first day. She'd won a gold medal, the first gold medal in Turin. Jen won a silver on that first day. But I'll tell you a very quick story. A year prior to the Olympics, Stephen Brunt and I are out doing stories, and we go up to Cyprus to do Jen Heil. And we're finished, and her boyfriend/coach, Dominic Gauthier, says, and by the way, here's a young woman from Sherwood Park, Athabasca, Alberta. Sherwood Park, Alberta. Economics major at McGill, fluently bilingual. Jen Heil's one of my favorite people. She has some group or organization called Girl Power. I have a great deal of respect for her. But we're over to do Jen. We're finished. And Dom Gauthier says, you got to talk to Alex Bilodeau. And I said, who's Alex Bilodeau? And he says, he's going to win a medal, a gold medal. And I said, yeah, and I'm the good Lord, and I'll appear in 2 days from now. But so we interviewed him. I came to know Alex and his family. And got to know his brother Frederick, who has cerebral palsy, his mom, his dad, his sister. I will never forget. It was very emotional. The Sunday night he won. And I give a lot of credit to Keith Pelley, Gord Cutler, Rick Brace, Yvonne Fitzanne.
They came into the studio with you.
But
I remember that.
They backed me. I said, I'd like his brother on. And someone said, well, he has cerebral palsy. I said, I don't care if it takes him 20 minutes to answer a question. I am going to give dignity to the disabled in this country. And the people like Keith and Rick and Gord Cutler, they backed me, which I have tremendous, I'll never forget that. And it was one of the great moments.
It was, I think it set the tone for all our coverage at those games. It was very inclusive. It was a fantastic interview. And I have another story about those games involving you, Brian. I remember about a week in, because we were doing the overnight show, so we were on from midnight to 9 a.m. and it was late. And I remember we had just started that day. It was probably day 10, and it was about 1 a.m, and we just started the show. And I was going through the International Broadcast Center to get an Olympic yogurt for myself and an Olympic muffin for Bev Thompson, my co-host. And I saw, kind of out of the corner of my eye, this fine-looking gentleman wearing a denim shirt, denim pants, and I believe a denim hat. And it was you, Brian, and you were feverishly looking around your desk for your notebook. You had all your notes in your notebook, and you couldn't find it. And I remember I said, well, I'll help you find your notebook. I've only got 2 minutes in this commercial break, but would you like to come on the show with me and just maybe be a guest? I mean, we've got all this time to kill. We had 6 hours. We had no guests. And I'll never forget, you turned to me and you said, Jay, don't be a smart ass.
Well, listen, I you know what I remember from Vancouver? This is very, one more word on Bilodeau. I went back a year later to do the anniversary show one year in 2011. And I said, how's Frederick? He said, oh, geez, he's a real pain in the rear. He's walking through airports wanting autographs, or people want his autograph. He's become a real celebrity. His head's too big. But the funny thing I remember is you and Barb introduced Brian Meets Brian. The other Brian.
Oh, that's right.
That's the other Brian.
Yeah.
Well, after Sydney, Australia in 2000, I get a letter from Secaucus, New Jersey, NBC News. Who in the heck do I know in Secaucus, New Jersey? So I open it, Dear Brian, for years I've heard about the other Brian Williams, the king of Canadian sport. We downloaded the Trudeau funeral. There you were. What a great job you do. However, the same name is a festering and serious problem between two peace-loving nations. I suggest a duel. The survivor keeps the name. Switzerland is neutral. Please have the integrity to reply. Brian Williams, NBC Nightly News. So I write back and I say, I get two things. My daughters want to know why the young good-looking one making $15 million a year is the one in New York. And secondly, their teachers want to know when they come in the morning, they stayed up to watch Brian Williams with Jay Leno, and it wasn't the real Brian Williams. So we got together. We finally met we've become good friends. We finally met in Vancouver. A piece went on the Today Show, the piece you ran on CTV
funny.
in the morning. I've had reaction from all over North America.
Yeah, it was a great moment.
The feeling in Vancouver, it's something that I don't know if I'll ever experience again. Maybe if Canada hosts another Olympics, but the way the country came together, the way the city came together, completely annihilated people, hugging police officers hugging them back. Is it like that at every single Olympics? Because it wasn't like that in London. Sure, it was a neat experience, but you didn't see the city embrace it as much as Vancouver. Maybe because Vancouver's way smaller than London. It feels like a small town. But have you ever seen a city get caught up in it like Vancouver did?
Only once, and that's a great question. And I had Dr. Rogan, the head of the International Olympic Committee, early on. I said, between us, we've done 30 Olympics. Have you ever seen anything like this in the street? He said, only once, and I agreed, and that was in Sydney. And that was in 2000, the Australians are outgoing and gregarious. And at the end of the games, he stopped me. He said, by the way, this surpasses Sydney. It changed our country. Christine Sinclair wasn't afraid to stand up when they got shafted by officials. In the past, Canadians would have bowed over and would have bent over and said, I'm sorry and we apologize. There's a pride in this country. We're not afraid to win anymore. American athletes that train in Calgary with those great facilities used to say to me, why don't you people beat your chest? Why don't you stand? I mean, I'm not saying be in your face with victory, but I know Vancouver changed our country in a very profound way, and we're proud of what we have here.
And is the 88 Olympics in Calgary, I always hear that it was the best run Olympics of all time. Is this correct?
It was one of them, and I just did a big article with one of the Calgary papers. I think it was The Sun. There were only 5 medals. The silvers in figure skating by Orser and Manley, 2 by Karen Percy, who's married to Kevin Lowe, in skiing, alpine skiing, and it just skips me where the other one came from. But there were only 5, and for that reason, Calgary doesn't get the pump that Vancouver does. Look, Vancouver was great, but you said to me 2 years before Vancouver, they'll win more gold medals than any country in history, and the 14th will be after the Canadian men's hockey team against the United States blew a 2-goal lead, goes into overtime with all the pressure, and Sidney Crosby, I say, come on. So Vancouver, look, the Olympics are about the athletes. They're not about the old fogies, and I fought about this. I nailed that Juan Antonio Samaranch. I wrote in the Toronto Star that he was elected for 12 years and stayed for 21. I didn't realize he was dyslexic. But I have not a lot of respect for the IOC. But the Olympics are about the athletes, first and foremost. And in Vancouver, the Canadian athletes were a magnificent story. Not that they weren't in Montreal and Calgary, but 5 medals without a gold is very different than 26 with 14 gold. Calgary, to answer your question, well run.
And in a way, laid a foundation for the athletes, like you mentioned, all those great facilities that were created in Calgary laid the foundation for us to be successful in Vancouver.
Jay, it's a great point. People forget bobsleigh. There's the only one in North America. Bobsleigh start for the summers in Calgary indoors. You've got the Oval. I mean, the facilities are great. There's a great legacy.
Well, last question. What Canadian city will get the Olympics next?
Oh, I like that
Toronto
question.
summer or Quebec City for a winter? Either of those?
I'm not sure either will. I think it will go to the United States the next time it comes to North America. There was a lot of anti-Americanism in Europe when Vancouver won, and we saw that anti-Americanism when Chicago didn't win. I think it's changing now. The problem with Quebec City, the altitude or the distance is not there for a downhill, for a true...
But I heard they can extend it. They can make the mountain higher.
I covered World Cup skiing for 25 years, spent a lot of time in Europe. One thing they liked about Whistler was it was a real downhill, not a handy downhill built for Greece or Mexico or nothing against those countries, but they're not winter powers and they don't compete on a regular basis in the World Cup. I'm not sure either will in the near future. I know Toronto...
But we will get one like 30, 40 years down the road.
It'll come. I think Toronto, the multicultural base here is of great appeal to people that decide. But remember, if there are 120 votes, probably 80 or 90 come from Europe. It's a Eurocentric organization. But I was in Moscow when Toronto lost out to Beijing. The Olympics will come back, but it will be a while.
Is getting the Pan Am Games... Does that matter to the IOC in any way?
Yeah, it does. Rio de Janeiro had them, and they were well organized in Rio, and Rio has the 2016 games. But the Pan Am Games have got some problems. I don't have any recipe for success, but I got one for failure. Try and be all things to all people, and they're spreading these out everywhere. I still have to be convinced they'll be successful. They were great in Winnipeg. I'm not sure they'll be great in Southern Ontario.
It's a good point. Dan said that was last question, but we have one of our fine PR people at TSN, Chobi Liang, asked us to ask you about the toe injury at the Skate Canada event. She says she was very important. She said if you don't ask him about this, she would be very upset.
That was in Windsor in October, and I'm clipping my nails, and I clipped my toenail. It clipped it too short. It was bleeding. It looked like it was starting to get infected. And my dad was a doctor, so I'm thinking, or is a doctor. He's 97, retired. I'm thinking I might get blood poisoning. So I go down to the gym, and my toe's sore, and I'm on the treadmill, and this man next to me says, "Brian Williams?" I said, "Yes." I'm a great CFL fan. You don't see a lot of those in Windsor. They're mostly Michigan or Lion fans. And he says, "I'm Dr. So-and-so, the hotel doctor." So I said, "I hate to do this, but my toe." So now in front of the whole gym, I got my foot up and I'm taking my sock off and I'm saying, he says, "What did you do? Was it an athletic injury?" I said, "No, I was clipping my toenails." So he says, "Meet me in 2 hours for coffee at about 10:30. I meet him for coffee. He had prescriptions for me. I went over to the drugstore in Willette Avenue in downtown Windsor, and my toe was fine. I still have some of the ointment left over. I keep it in my travel case. So if I ever clip my damn toes again, a little too short, I'll have that to protect me.
I love that story. Oh, I do have one more quick question. Next, obviously Ottawa's coming. CFL. Is Quebec City next? What about the Maritimes? I feel like this is, people talk about the Maritimes, like, well, the stadium's not there, but man, you see the way Saskatchewan embraces the CFL, and my dream is that it goes to Atlantic Canada and that part of the country embraces the CFL as well, and we're unified. Maybe I'm too pie in the sky.
Well, let's get Ottawa first, and we have Jeff Hunt, not the wacko nutbag Glebermans who came in before those crackpots and Horn Chen before them. The Greenberg family out of Ottawa, Jeff Hunt, who runs the 67s, successful even with the Senators. So Ottawa will be great. They've got a new stadium. I did the Toronto-Edmonton game in Moncton. Here's the problem. It was on a Sunday morning. The New Brunswick election was the next day. The front page of the whole Moncton newspaper was all about the football game. I picked up the Halifax paper that morning. Not a line anywhere, even in the sports section. There's a great rivalry between Moncton and Halifax. I mean, there is between Edmonton and Calgary, Hamilton, Toronto, but they're big enough to sustain it. These cities will need both working together. I would like to think, or I hope it will work someday, but I know Acadia draws well. University sport is big out there, basketball and football, but I still have to be convinced. I'd like to see it, but I still have to be convinced.
Well, Brian, we're so thrilled that you joined us on the podcast.
It was awesome.
It was great having you here, and we wish you continued success. Will you come back and hang out with us sometime?
Listen, I'm honored to come back, and what invigorates me is to see people, younger people in our business like you two, that are so darn professional. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this. There's nothing wrong with having fun, and you guys are originals. You have fun. You never cross the line. You have the credibility. You don't forget that. So it's been a thrill for me. I'm quite serious. I really enjoyed it.
Could you be our agent?
No, I can't. I don't have an agent, actually. I think Don Cherry and I are the only two without agents.
Maybe we should not have an agent there.
Listen, but I haven't been written up in the New York Times. So,
that is true. Yeah. We got the Wall Street Journal.
Well, no, was it Wall Street Journal? I thought, okay.
It's the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
I thought it was New York Times because the other Brian Williams called me and he said, "Who are these guys?"
Yeah.
I said, they're the big stars.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, guys.
Brian Williams was awesome.
Yeah, Brian, I was saying this to Katie. He shouldn't like us, but he does. He's, he is such a good guy to us. He's been so good to us.
And we kept it strictly handshakes this time. There was a table.
Didn't try to push his head into your crotch.
No, he didn't go in for the hug, so it was good.
Yeah.
Jeremy Taggart joins us. Jeremy, did you talk to Brian at all in the waiting room?
I did. I was sitting there and I just kept going, I'm talking to Brian Williams. I'm talking to Brian Williams. And he, you know what? He blows me away how nice he actually is and how he's, just kind of kept, he did mention he was old a lot, but at the same time, he just was super nice and had like the greatest things to say about you guys.
And he has a pass to get in here, which I was in awe of.
That was the skeleton key to the city.
I ran into him. I ran him outside. Usually how it works, because we do this podcast in a different building from the TSN building, and I have to wait outside for 15 minutes for someone to come open the door.
We all do. We don't have passes to get into this studio.
And then I run into Brian on the street. He's like, there he is. He's like, I'm like, yeah, I don't have a pass. He's like, click. I'm like, what the hell?
And he said it was given to him by former CTV guru Ivan Fitzon. So Ivan must have given him, and the keys to the liquor cabinet.
He's probably got a key to my car, too.
He probably bought your car.
Him and Lloyd Robertson can just go wherever they want, right?
Yeah.
Just have a Rolodex of special skeleton keys.
How great would it be if you went to downstairs to see who's buying your car and it was Brian?
Imagine walking into a bar or a restaurant with Lloyd and Brian.
Oh, my God. You get into anywhere in this country.
Oh, wow. That'd be pretty
Imagine
cool.
walking out with Lloyd and Brian. How about that?
At the end of a long night at the bar. I'm going home with these two. I don't know what's going to happen, but I guess I'm going with it.
We had Grant on earlier. He was telling us the story about Bobby Orr, and you knew that he was a drummer.
I
Right,
did.
Taggart?
I did, thanks to Twitter and thanks to him telling me that.
he played drums on the Mike Bullard show.
In the Orrin Isaacs band.
See, Orrin Isaac, did he like...
He was the bass playing band leader.
Yeah, he was like the Bullard sidekick.
Yeah.
I always remember that.
Big smile. Kind of laughed
He was a
it
big
up.
dude.
Yeah.
He was a big dude. But you were telling us that you guys, Our Lady Peace, never went on the Bullard show, and he acknowledged that. Bullard acknowledged that.
In Bullard's book, he acknowledged the fact that we would never come on after being asked 1,000,000 times because he always wanted us to, and we said no many times.
What's Bullard's book called?
Being Bullard.
Just Bull.
Oh, that's good.
Wasn't he a cop?
Load of bull.
He was a cop, right?
Yeah, he was something like that. Yeah, you're right.
He's tough.
Like Pat Burns.
He's a funny guy, actually. Have you ever seen him do stand-up?
I never have. I've heard he's funny.
He is funny.
He does a lot of like corporate gigs still, I think.
Yeah, and
he wears high pants, real high, like Keith Richards in 1972 high.
We should get him on the show.
Yeah, we could get Bullard on. I mean, the thing with Bullard, I think the reason that show worked for a while is that he can ad-lib. He's an ad-libber. He can go into a crowd and just start riffing on.
Remember the time Tom Green was on with the dead raccoon?
Oh, yeah, he brought the dead raccoon on. Do you remember
that?
that?
Up on the show.
Oh, yeah. See, that was good TV.
That's great TV.
Tom Green went to the same college as me at Algonquin. That's when he started shooting his show, because you'd see this guy shooting something in the cafeteria. You're like, what the hell? That's when he had the cable
So you
access
saw
show.
him shooting it?
Yeah, he was just
Really?
shooting like silly things around the college.
I remember, just fights. Him drawing lesbians making out on
Yeah.
his parents'
They
car.
weren't happy.
No, they weren't happy.
We could get Tom Green, too. You know what we did? We needed someone to run the charity for my car, and we need someone to keep track of who we want to get on the podcast and also what we've played for TV Theme Vault.
Okay, well, that's what Mike
Because
Gentili does, so you've just insulted him. He's sitting right over here.
Earlier in the show, I mentioned that I had to bring something up from the last podcast. We had My Pet Monster last week. That was the second time we had it.
Oh, you did that already.
Was it?
Yeah.
He was probably just being nice to you. He's like, yeah, we did that, but we can do it again.
It's all about you, Toolsy.
But someone said, yeah, that's the second time you've had it, and you sang along for the entire thing last time, too. So I apologize for that.
Speaking of TV Theme Vault, it's time for a little TV Theme Vault.
No, we're going Dad Story.
Do you want to do Dad Story first, and
I
then
could do
TV
Dad
Theme Vault?
Story,
Okay,
and then
let's
we
do
could
Dad. Let's do Dad Story first. Okay.
This one takes us back to the late 70s. We were living at Woodbridge at the time. I like to go around the GTA because I lived all over the place. We were living on Gamble Street in Woodbridge, and we didn't have a lot of dough. We all had foam mattresses. I don't know why I'm laughing about that. But by having a foam mattress that's on the floor, you can hear what's happening around the house. So it was in the middle of the night, and my parents' room was right beside me and my brother's room, and I heard my mom, Burl, say, Ron, there's someone in the house. And I that went from that to this barrage of sounds and pounding. My dad went from lying on his back to bashing walls and smashing and screaming, I get down here, son of a... all the way down the stairs. And I actually heard the door slam, like whoever came in was gone.
Wow. So there was someone in the house.
There was absolutely someone in the house, but his reaction of absolute insanity and hitting everything as he was going down the stairs. I heard the door slam. Not only we're not taking anything, but we promise we're never coming back.
That's a good way to deal with a house intruder.
Better than a dog, better than a gun.
Or keeping a baseball bat by the bed.
Yeah. It was crazy. The stuff that was coming out of his mouth, it was like a crazy Scotsman screaming at the top of his lungs and banging all the doors and floor, and it was spectacular.
So that's like Alarm Force.
Yeah, you didn't have to use violence, just act crazy.
It was like everyone at Alarm Force being in your house. Literally, I was 4 years old, and I remember it like yesterday. It was insane.
Did you feel a sense of comfort knowing that your dad was
I'm glad my dad can become 10 people.
That's just you're put into a corner, and how do you react? You smash the walls. You just go nuts.
But on his way downstairs, as he was going, if they were still there, he was about to take it out on them too. But it was complete insanity.
I love that story.
Gotta love Pops.
Yeah, your dad, man. We gotta get your dad on.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Does he know you're revealing these stories?
He loves that this is happening. He does. He loves that it's happening. He's like, that's good. That's great. That's good stuff.
That's right. It's about time people know about me.
Yeah, you know what? My dad's that kind of guy. He got into art and he started doing sculpting, and then he did this stuff that was called outsider art, and it became he got on the cover of Globe and Mail Entertainment or the art section just from the first thing that he did. He's super talented guy, and I think one of those people that if he isn't working on something creative, he just goes off and gets very depressed.
Speaking of that, let's talk about the new organization you're a part of. And you talk about that, how creativity has allowed you to kind of maintain a nice mental state over the years.
Absolutely. I became an advisory board member with the Collateral Damage Project, which is the website leftbehindbysuicide.org. And it's dealing with loved ones and friends that have lost their life, and just a way of dealing with it so it doesn't happen. There's something called Safe Talk, which is a program that takes 3 hours, and it's a lot like a CPR. It's like seeing the symptoms and understanding the ramifications that could happen with someone that goes down that road, or the person that's taken in by the suction of darkness or depression. And it's an incredible website to check out, and it's actually going to be a book and an exhibit that will go across the country. And it's a way for people to realize that it's because suicide is the stigma with suicide. People don't like to say it, in corporate world, people don't like to use that word.
Yeah.
And yet it's everywhere, So thanks for letting me mention that, but it's super important to me, and I think it's something that will grow.
And what's the website?
leftbehindbysuicide.org.
It's Michael Landsberg obviously has done a lot to raise awareness about depression, and it's just nice that everyone's talking now and sort of getting it out there. It's not that thing that nobody talks about anymore.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's do some theme vaults.
Yes.
I love this
TV
idea.
Theme vault. We've got a couple here.
Okay.
We've got a cartoon and we've got a sitcom.
So you want to do your cartoon first?
No, let's go sitcom. By the way, I love the Mike puts this together, the recap of everything that's going to happen, a nice little one pager that we have with us on the podcast. And Jeremy, your write-up was the weekly walk down memory lane and a reminder of his father's very clear anger issues.
Just a weekly reminder, just in case you forgot. We'll remind you.
Let's go sitcomming.
Okay, so this one is Mike Gentili. This is near and dear to our hearts. This show is a huge part of my childhood, and I think a lot of people our age for sure. Katie?
Oh. That's a great guitar track.
Oh, yeah.
Come and knock on our door.
The great Ray Charles. This guy's still alive and is 94.
Performed by Ray Charles and Julia Rinker.
Yes.
Come and dance on our floor.
He was probably 70 when he did this, yet he sounds still like 30.
It came out in 77. Yeah.
Is that like the Wrecking Crew on the...
Yeah, that's right, like the Wrecking Crew. Studio Assassins.
Hal Blaine on drums.
That's right. The Wrecking Crew.
I could just see Larry coming down right now.
Oh, man.
Let's go to the Regal Beagle.
So take us through the show, Toolsy.
Well, I'm sure you guys have lots of memories about it. I wasn't allowed to watch Three's Company.
What?
Oh, what?
Why were you allowed to watch? Too risque?
It's too risky.
Really?
Come on. Too many hot chicks for
Your
mom and
parents, when was it the fact that he was pretending to be a gay man?
The living situation, everything was just too offside.
Just too much. Too much.
It was off limits.
You were the youngest. Were you always getting a little flustered getting fight? Were you getting watching it? Is that what it was?
It was never allowed on. I know the theme, but I was never allowed to.
You had a little
that doesn't
jammy.
make any...
You had a little pajama, didn't you? Little jammy.
What were you allowed to watch?
Oh, well, yeah,
Lassie?
Dukes of Hazzard and all that.
Well, what's the difference? Daisy Duke?
Hey, it's good old two old country boys just racing around.
Sure, they were racist.
Oh my god!
But it doesn't matter.
Hey, they were just
Sure, they had a Confederate flag on the top of their car.
going
but
around
damn
the
it.
countryside, and they're always taking an alternate route from the person they were chasing.
Yeah.
But it was just a raised road right next to the other road.
Have we had Dukes of Hazzard on the TV theme vault? I don't think we have yet.
We probably have had it 7 times.
Yeah. You probably had Tom Wopat on here.
Yeah, that's right. Wopat was a guest.
Yeah, Three's Company. You guys lead us through it because I can't believe John Ritter's dead.
Yeah, it's sad. Well, it was, he was a cook, Jack Tripper. And
He was a cook.
chef.
Yeah, he was a chef
an
on the show.
accomplished chef that was trying to make his own road into the world of super chefs.
That's
Who
right.
were the two ladies?
And it was Joyce DeWitt was Janet.
Were they
And-
prostitutes?
No, they weren't hookers.
Okay.
They were just hardworking.
Suzanne Summers, who was a superstar at the time.
She was like a big deal. She was Chrissy, and she was the dumb one, and Janet was the smart one.
What were their jobs?
And they had, of course, let's not forget Mr. Roper and Mrs. Roper
remember
downstairs.
Mr. Roper.
Yeah. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Roper, the only way they allowed Jack to live with Chrissy and Janet is because Chrissy and Janet told Mr. Roper that Jack was gay.
So it's okay. They're not going to just fornicate all day.
That's right. They aren't going to bang each other all day.
That was acceptable back in 77? I thought that'd be...
Well, was it a Norman Lear joint?
I don't know if it was a Norman Lear
But
joint. No, it was created by Brian Cook and Johnny Mortimer. They sound like they were in the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
I don't know who they were.
172 episodes?
Well, Barney Fife, who was Mr. Furley, was
That's
the other
right.
classic. He replaced the Ropers, and he was quite quite a character.
It was a huge hit, and they spun the Ropers off into their own show. I always remember Jeffrey Tambor from Arrested Development was on that show, but it only lasted a year, so that was over.
And Three's a Crowd was another spin-off.
Speaking of Three's a Crowd, that was the spin-off after Three's Company left, and I believe we have that theme song, which none of us remember.
You and me together.
I don't mind it.
This would be the Joni Loves Chachi kind of mix that didn't work.
That's right, exactly.
I don't remember this. Maybe it's because it only lasted a week.
This one lasted 22 episodes, one season.
Wow, that's like a hit now.
Yeah, that's true. That's like 3 seasons on HBO.
That just shows you how big Three's Company actually was.
So Jack met this girl, Vicky. She was a stewardess. And so they moved into the apartment above Jack's Bistro. But the guy who owned the building conveniently was Vicky's dad. So Jack's girlfriend's father. So he would always just show up and...
Are you guys having sex again?
He'd just show up and cause problems. And they weren't married, so it was
I remember one episode of him trying to... the Tambor trying to get them not to move in. He's like, I like to practice my drums here during the day. Zabba-ba-bam-bam-ba, just to try and get people to not move in.
Who played... Oh, it's
That's
Robert,
how funny it was.
Robert Mandan. He was like a character actor. Speaking of Arrested Development...
You're dying over there, Toolsy.
Jessica Walter, who played the mom on Arrested Development,
was on there.
Played the mom on Three's a Crowd. How crazy is that?
It's pretty crazy.
Played Vicky's mom on Three's a Crowd. Holy, we brought it back. Toolsy, you excited?
You guys done?
Okay, we're getting to the cartoon where you can show us.
Let's get to the show that Toolsy was allowed
to watch.
Yeah, this is the one Toolsy was allowed to watch.
This conversation.
Oh my God.
You should see Toolsy's face right now. He's live, just going for it.
This one's pretty good.
Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the
Decepticons.
The Transformers. Robots in disguise. The Transformers.
A lot of guns going off.
Yeah, a lot of activity.
Yeah. A lot of photons.
So that's the original Transformers cartoon before Megan Fox and all this garbage they've got now.
Was that in 4:4 time? Or there was a lot of weird pivot points and stuff in that.
A lot of time signature changes.
It was like a Frank
Zappa.
Rush
tune.
But the wimpiest lasers of all time.
That was a big hit. And then
That was huge.
Wasn't GoBots also? That was something that was happening at the time. GoBots.
That was the alternate network trying to get a piece of the pie. Yeah, because it was like the Transformers were like $8 and the GoBots were $6.
Yeah, that's it.
So it was started in '84 as a 3-part miniseries, and then it started with the 13 further episodes were commissioned in season 1.
You're making it sound very official. We're going to commission a few more episodes of the Transformers.
I remember going to the Giant Tiger and buying the Transformers.
Wait, so now with the title, the pilot was re-aired. Now with the title, More Than Meets the Eye.
That was the title?
Yeah, it wasn't Transformers.
The song or the show?
The show.
That's weird.
I don't know.
I never got that. I was on Channel 29 in Buffalo, so I was a Saturday morning cartoon that I missed out on.
Do you know one of the Transformers' name was Beachcomber?
Oh, cool. Bruno Gerussi.
Did he have a toque?
Was there a Relic, too?
It wasn't Relic.
The Relic of the Transformer.
Was there a Jesse?
Transforms into a crazy drunk.
Do those Transformer movies, do they make money, the ones with...
Yeah, I think they make gazillions. They're terrible. Anything directed by Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Is he
garbage.
Is he directing the new G.I. Joe?
No, I don't think so.
Is Nick Cage in it?
We had a big discussion about the new G.I. Joe last night in the newsroom because in, I guess, one of the trailers, Bruce Willis is in the new G.I. Joe, and they call him Joe.
Yikes.
So one of the guys in our newsroom is like, yeah, he's G.I. Joe. No. And then someone else says, no one person is G.I. Joe. It's like the group of Army elite guys.
Isn't there a beachhead or a beachcomber in G.I. Joe, too? Relic? Is Relic jumping islands on his boat?
It all comes back to
here.
Relic.
Okay, here. This is what Michael Bay's doing next. That Pain and Gain movie with Mark Wahlberg and The Rock. You know what I'm talking about?
really-
Katie knows what I'm talking about.
The Rock is in another one?
Yeah, the one where
Rock's
he's
in
all
every movie
jacked
now.
up on HGH.
Movies suck.
I agree. I completely
Seriously.
agree.
Like, we are not missing anything with Hollywood today.
No, we're not.
It's really gone to the way of the sad sack.
I agree 100%.
Sad sack, not a porn you want to watch.
Wow.
Goodbye, everybody. Sad sack.
Honey, what porn did you rent? Sad sack.
Sad sack. Really depressing.
So, can he get it up? I don't know. I guess we got to watch.
Just looking at
He
his
lives
sack.
alone.
His sack
He
is just
delivers
depressing.
pizza.
Or maybe he just has a
Sad
really
sack.
He just has a really ugly sack.
That's what I mean. That's what I would think.
Everything about him
Yeah.
is sad sack.
So he's got to
Just
cover
sack.
it up.
He's broke.
Yeah.
He lives in a crappy
Every time he
apartment.
drops his pants, you just see that sad-looking sack.
He always says the wrong thing. In job interviews always go flat.
This sounds like a pitch that's going to make us millions.
Yeah.
we
Let's call
have
Michael Bay.
we have to wrap things up. I got to go sell a car. The guy's
Yeah.
waiting outside with cash in
Okay.
hand, and you guys have to escort me to
sure
get the
you don't
cash.
He sounded like 12.
Hey,
He's not
it's
going to...
Billy Zabka
Yeah,
from the
Zabka.
Karate Kid. He's going to
Because
buy
he's
it.
probably going to have guys with him. I need to come with my posse.
Yeah, it's true.
If he has a skeleton
Me
hoodie.
and Taggart, it's really going to scare the crap out of everyone.
So you guys are my muscle?
Yeah,
we
that's
got to bring
right.
Gentili. At least he looks tough.
Yeah,
He's
Gentili
sick.
looks tougher. Yeah,
He might
Gentili's sick.
He'll puke on him.
Makowitz got him sick. Katie, can you come out with us? All right, we got the thumbs up.
Okay.
Oh, this is fun. This is a fun app.
That might be the last one that we're a part of because this could
Why?
end tragically.
Why? Because of
Because
sad
of
sack?
Zabka?
No, the deal.
The Zabka guy.
I thought it was sad
We
sack.
could walk into an ambush.
Hey, I just got out of jail. I want to buy your car.
That's it. You have to, Taggart, you have to tell this story quickly before
Last time we were coming here, last week, me and Jay were walking across the street, and some guy comes up to us behind us, and he has a skeleton hoodie on, and he says,
Oh.
"Hey guys, I just got out of jail. You have some money?" And we're like, "No, sorry." And he's like, "You."
It was like, first of all, maybe don't wear a skeleton hoodie when you're asking people for money downtown.
And it's probably not the first thing you want to tell people that you just got out of jail.
And that's what we
He
said.
just ripped us for not just no sorry, and he's like just goes off.
He
on
looked like Billy Zabka from the first Karate Kid movie when they dressed in the skeleton outfits and beat up Ralph Macchio.
He could have chased us down the alley.
Is he available
Yeah.
for hire for me right now?
Yeah, let's go out and see if we can find him.
Yeah, he's probably across the street.
All right. This was fun. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you guys again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie. You really pulled it off this week.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, you were awesome. Even though Toolsy doesn't appreciate
Even
you.
though we're all gonna puke big time tomorrow.
Yeah, he's gonna get us sick.
And
thanks
Brian
Brian
Williams.
Yeah, Brian Williams was great.
What
It was
a god.
Great to have him on the show.
enjoy your week.
Have a good week. Hopefully Toolsy isn't dead.
They're going home.
Dance. 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 Keep dancing. Dance. Dance. Dance.
This is the Jay and Dan Podcast.